To answer your question, the reason my world is always incentivized in innovating is because I don't build structures that incentivize short-term KPIs. Because when you're incentivizing short-term KPIs, you become too oriented on the transaction. And I'm a salesman, so I understand the energy in this room. The hell, like, you know, you might not even be, don't forget, I also own and operate my own businesses. I'm not publicly traded, I'm not trying to sell them. So I am giving a lot of care to 17 years from now. I can't ask that of my employees or of any of you. How many people here are retiring within the next 17 years? Raise your hand. Real talk. Tough for me to say, hey, I really need you to give a shit about the next 17 years from now. Tough to ask that. So for us, it's easy. My religion is also day trading attention. I think the only thing that, of course, I think the only thing that matters in the world is who's the best at garnering attention. The end. There's no other currency. It's how the whole world's always worked. I was born in the Soviet Union before I immigrated here, and I'm 47 years old. So I grew up in Jersey in the 80s, very captivated by the Cold War, because that's where I was born, but this is where I was growing up. And I was also a pretty poor student because I was really a purebred entrepreneur, but the one class I was good at was history. And now I understand why. I was interested in pattern recognition. When there's a coup in a country, at the same time the army or whoever's doing the coup is going to the palace to get the guy, they're going to the radio station, the newspaper, and the TV station to control the message. All of the anxiety and unrest we all have in our country and in geopolitics right now is because communication has changed. We've gone away from the big platforms owning it, hence the governments, and now we have decentralization of communication. Mr. Beast couldn't be a threat to Hershey's. Logan Paul couldn't be a threat to Gatorade. The influencer that I'm most worried about for you in the next 5 years couldn't be a threat to you because they didn't have enough scale to compete with you. You didn't have enough scale to compete with P&G and Unilever at that level. Now a single human can screw you all up because she can reach everyone for nothing, zero. She doesn't have to run commercials, right? And she doesn't need the retailer. She doesn't need Walmart. Walmart is taking your money to give to people like her to seduce her to come into the store because they need her. Shit's changed. And I think the energy I'm trying to bring to this meeting is we don't have the luxury of believing we're fast. You're slow. I'm coming here with one agenda. The deep hope that the energy of the conversation makes you go faster and makes you go realer. We can't waste money. You are not in a position, I know this business well enough and the competitive set, you are not in the position to waste 1 penny on marketing. And so that's what day trading attention is for me. What's the underpriced influencer? What's the underpriced platform? Last week, TikTok worked like this, today it works like that. What creative works there? Why is organic social media the most important thing in business, yet nobody's looking at it? Because everyone thinks it's an afterthought and a nice to have when it is the foundation of the competitors that are eating up the ecosystem. Sally in Atlanta didn't start with a $40 million budget. She posted on TikTok and it went viral. You need to do that. I was in New Jersey, in Union, New Jersey, at a Chamber of Commerce event in 1997 that looked pretty similar to the room I'm in right now. And I said, we were talking about this thing that they wanted me to talk about called the World Wide Web. And I gave my spiel the way I'm giving it now, and with the same level of conviction and the same Jersey mouth. And somebody raised their hand and said, Gary, but I was explaining finding, this was early web. There's some kids in here, for some of us that are a little bit over 45, the internet was what is this? It was crazy. Kind of like the way you may feel about AI now. It's something, but how, what? And I was talking about a directory and search, find, if you remember for the OGs, the internet used to mainly be referred to as the information superhighway. It was predominantly known as a place to go get information, and now it's obviously the foundation of society. Anyway, I gave my spiel, and a guy raised his hand and goes, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. He said, Gary, I was talking about if you needed to find a plumber in Jersey. He goes, if I need to find a plumber, I'm gonna go to the yellow pages. and I said, for now, but you won't. And he laughed, and most of the people in the room laughed until they didn't. And so AI, we're in a different place, because now we have 25 years of technology, and everyone here who laughed at the internet, who laughed at email, who laughed at the iPhone, who laughed at social media is like kind of understanding that they're wrong. And so none of you right now are completely dismissive of AI. Instead, we're now on the other side of the pillow. We're fearful of it. Is it gonna take my job? Are the robots gonna kill my kids? Like, we've turned it into fear instead of audacity. The answer to the question is AI is gonna do for us what the tractor did for us when 80% of us in the world worked on a farm. There was a day when 80% of the human beings on earth worked on a farm. And then the tractor was invented and allowed us to do other things. AI is going to allow us to do other things. We are gonna be able to do work that I can make a deck in 3 minutes. And that used to cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars in employees in 3 weeks. Now, the question becomes what happens to those employees? They'll do other things. This is what they said. The car was debated heavily. Electricity, my friends, I don't know how many people like history. Electricity was demonized aggressively by humans. Most people claim that it was demons running through your house. So basically I just need even the people that are retiring in the next 17 years, all of you will be affected by AI for the rest of your life. And in great ways, like it will do your taxes for you and you don't have to pay an accountant the money and it will actually be right and you'll get your full tax credits and it'll take 2 minutes. That's good, right? And the way you sit here and say, really? Is the same way that people sat 100 years ago that I can go to Australia within the day and that used to take a month. The world's moving. Innovation doesn't stop in our lifetime. And AI will be one of the most profound things that you ever see in your life. And it will completely change all our lives. However, this company at this moment should spend 0 minutes on it. Maybe a little bit for internal, maybe decks to each other to be a little faster. We need to talk about the first step. This company needs to figure out how to be more relevant to more customers at scale within the money that it has to become a defense mechanism to the infrastructure of how their product is sold. Marketing is the only way out.
What are some of the big mistakes you see companies make with social media?
Not understanding how much science is behind it. The science behind the art. I post my content, my personal posts on LinkedIn are scheduled to the exact minute. Like I will post on LinkedIn at 9:07 a.m. because more people will see it than if I posted at 9:06 and 9:08 and nobody thinks about that stuff.
Wow.
I think about the first 3 seconds. I think about the creative, all I think about is how the algorithms work to give me more reach to what I want. And then I layer human psychology, and then I layer my business objectives, and then I layer that Kelsey and Taylor Swift are dating and how can I use that? Pop culture. And so, I'm playing a game of ingredients. I'm using pop culture, I'm using platform reality, I'm using science, I'm using best practices, I'm using human behavior, I'm using business reality. So the level, again, the hardest thing in the world to do, in marketing, and I do it all, is social media creative. And yet, it is deemed the easiest by every organization. And what I mean by that, it's the thing that most people don't actually really care about. This is where you can outflank your competitors. Your direct competitors, the biggest companies, many of that we work with, will take more seriously a 30-second commercial and spend more money on the catering of that 30-second commercial and the T&E of that 30-second commercial than they'll spend on their entire year on social. Which is why they're all so reliant on influencers, because they don't know how to do it. And so my big take is that people, marketers, business people, salespeople like ourselves, will go to a dinner table and we will have conversations about social media, if we do, on 2 fronts. 1, how it's ruining the country. 2, how it's ruining our children, right? So general conversation amongst people is they will literally have dinner conversations with gusto on how powerful this platform is, that it's ruining or how scared you are of it, what it's doing to the politics, what it's doing to politicians, what it's doing to the country, what it's doing to your children. You will sit there the whole time on Saturday night with your best friends or your relatives, and then you'll come in Monday morning and you'll look at it as the least most important thing in your marketing mix. I've literally had CEOs of companies who I do business with, especially when a lot of stuff was going on 3 or 4 years ago in America, and they would yell at me for 10 minutes about how bad social media was because it's put democracy on the brink of its knees. And then we would switch over to business once we were done with our opening cocktail and letting that person rant, and they would then explain to me how social media can't sell their product the way that print can. And I was like, let me get this straight. Social media is powerful enough to put democracy on its knees, but it can't sell lipstick? Get the hell out of here. I would tell this 17-year-old kid, I'll talk to you as if I'm talking to myself at 17. Bro, you got really lucky in the DNA game. Your mom and dad had sex at the right second, and a lot of things went well for you. You're stunningly got a ton of shit figured out, but you have one major problem. Your lack of candor to people that you love is gonna fuck you up. It's gonna be your kryptonite. And so work on that and start telling people how you actually feel, and that will really help you. Even if it might hurt their micro feelings, you won't build resentment and it won't fuck up your game. Besides that, keep doing what you've been doing, which is, and this is now the advice I'm giving you, Max, brother, listen to me. At 17, the biggest mistake that every 17-year-old makes on earth is they think they're supposed to. That's where I end it. You think you're supposed to, based on your family, based on what content you consume, based on your life, you think you're supposed to X, you think you're supposed to Y, right? Now with the way the world is, some 17-year-olds live in families where they think they're supposed to not go to college and be an entrepreneur because their folks are. But maybe you fucking love going to school that way and that's your path, and you fear being an entrepreneur because you've seen your parents struggle with entrepreneurship. More likely, you think you're supposed to do this college thing or be a this or be a that, or you want to be an influencer, or you're supposed to be a lawyer. Bro, at 17, what you need to realize is how lucky you are. How many people here would give it all up to be 17 again? Raise your hand. One more time, because I want this kid to have a moment. This is a room of some, by the way, I don't know if you saw how fast my fucking hand went up. How many people in this room, no bullshit, would give it all up to be 17 again? Raise your hands. Brother, listen to me. You could literally do nothing right for the next 13 years of your life. Actually, let me say it a different way. You could literally do nothing right for the next 17 years of your life. Do you know what I was doing professionally at 34 years old? What? I worked in my father's liquor store. I haven't even started what I am now today to everyone here. You have such a scary amount of time. What would I tell you to do? To like take a step back and really think about what you like what you watch, gaming, music, rock climbing, I don't fucking know you, you know what I mean? But whatever it is, you have so much time to actually go chase it. Live humbly though. Don't have your parents or grandparents support your dream. If you have a dream and you wanna live it, then fucking live on the floor with your buddies, right? Don't become entitled and have someone pay for your dream. But if you have a dream, go try to go after it for 6, 7, 10 years. And after 10 years, 12 years, 17 years, then you could be like, all right, look, I went after it. When I'm 80, I'll never regret. I wanted to be this. You gotta be self-aware. You can't look at yourself. I couldn't look at myself and be like, I wanna be in the NBA. That's delusional. You know, you can't be delusional, but you can absolutely fucking do anything, and none of it, if it goes wrong, will matter, other than you need to make sure you do it the proper way. And what you need to do is, and do you know why everybody raised their hand? Because as you get older, this very scary thing starts to creep in. You don't know about this shit yet, Max, but let me tell you what it's called. It's called regret. And regret is the fucking worst. And so what I want you to do for the next 17 years is you live your life without regret. Don't blame your parents for making you go to this or become that. Do what the fuck you want on your own 2 feet, not their paper. Do it the right way and do it for a decade. And if it doesn't work out, then you can get a bullshit job. I think if you think about university as something that you want to do for your parents because they've done so much for you, you'd be surprised on how it feels going through university. I believe that I believe that you know in your heart that it being a fallback piece of paper is bullshit. But I don't believe that you think going for 4 years for your parents is bullshit. As a matter of fact, based on the way you're talking, I think that it would make you happy to do that for your parents.
It will make me happy, and I know that because the thing is that my dad, he went through the normal process, and it was really hard for him, and he had to work so hard, and he was such a disadvantage because of his circumstances. There was civil war and everything when he was growing up. So for him, the fact that he made success like as an employee and as like working for a company after so many years, and the growth of the company while he was with them exponentially grew. So so that's why I always completely understand my dad when he tells me like, you have to go to university, this is the only way, like what else are you gonna do? No job is gonna look for you without a degree. And then I always tell my dad like that take a quote from Elon Musk: I didn't go to Harvard, but the people that worked for me did. And then my dad always tells me, how many Elon Musks are there in the world? And I told my dad,
the problem is there's a lot more. They're not Elon Musk, but the amount of people that are entrepreneurs that were not built for school, that have gone on to successful, but more importantly, happy lives, that have far more college educated literally almost everybody that works for my companies, the 1,500 current employees and the tens of thousands that have worked for me in my life, literally almost all of them, outside of a couple scrappers at Wine Library, stock boys, have been on paper more educated than me. Forget about my financial success in comparison to the majority of them. It's the sheer happiness of living what's in your DNA that is so important.
yeah,
I view entrepreneurship like I view art. I really do. I really do. I believe that artists who are truly artists are happy to live by financial humble means, to be able to draw or to doodle or whatever they do. And if that means they'll make $63,000 a year scrapping by a side job and selling a couple of paintings, that if they truly are a true artist, not one who thought they wanted to be an artist to become Banksy or make money or be famous or be a rock star and date models. I mean, truly, I am an artist and I love it. I believe they're happier than a chemical engineer making $800,000 a year. And I think that's why I associate with entrepreneurship so much, more about the freedom of being happy about doing your true mission than the financial success that's associated with it. Because when I got into it, it wasn't cool like it is right now. Do you understand how crazy it is for me to have young men like you say that I'm your idol? There was no thought that businessmen or women were cool. When I was your age, athlete, musician, but never even, the most famous businessman that was doing something progressive was Bill Gates, and his glasses were the size of my head. It was the furthest, it was nerd culture for the progressive businessman, or very old people. Like a businessman on TV would be a 70-year-old man with white hair, right, Maha? It's very fascinating how things evolve, but I would tell you that I think, because I have to run right now, I just realized, I apologize, but I think A, let's stay in touch. B, convert to the fact that you're doing it for your parents, and I think you'll enjoy it a lot more the next 6 years. I wasn't able to convince my parents either to not go to college. I didn't want to, and I went for 4 years because I loved my parents so much, and I just, I think, I'm sure Maha can tell you the same thing, and anybody who's lived a little bit. Getting comfortable with being uncomfortable for a period of time is actually a great life skill. And honestly, no matter how much, including myself, one loves entrepreneurship, the vacation that is being young and just going to school is, that's the reason I was able to be okay the last 4 or 5 years mentally was I basically said, well, this will be my last real vacation before I go into my real life. And so, I think what I was fortunate enough was my parents didn't stop me from doing business stuff on the side. As obviously I worked for my family's liquor store business and I was doing my sports card and flipping and garage selling. And so, if you're in a position where your parents aren't completely stopping you from doing things on the side and saying, no, you can't, you're forbidden, you must only study. If you're lucky enough that you can do both, I would tell you that you have plenty of time in front of you, what you want. But I do think the sooner you can start tasting, drop shipping, influencer marketing, NFT, cryptocurrency, all this stuff looks easy on paper. It's good in theory, but then when you do it, it's much harder than people think. And I think the sooner you can taste the ups and the downs, it's kind of like exercising. You'll be more prepared for when you do it full time. It's like prepping for a fight. Look, my point of view is this. Do you know what it's like to get $1 million?
Right.
That's insane. Like if I had that at 18, I would have been like, it would have been over. I might have the Jets and the Knicks by now. So if your kids are capable, they're not gonna need a whole lot. Plus, for a lot of kids, it fucks them up.
Sure.
I've met a lot of rich kids now because of my life the last 15 years. Man, I'm not sure who's worse. Like I actually genuinely believe if you could be born with little but have a happy house, or born with a lot and have an unhappy house, that's not even a fight. But I think it's even scarier. I think if you've got a lot and you're in a happy house and you got a little and you're in a happy house, the little and happy house person won because they've been taught from the get that money doesn't buy happiness. Whereas the rich kid might not know. They might just think, well, we're happy because we got a driver and a private plane. And so the answer is I don't know. The answer is I'm sure it will ebb and flow. The other thing I don't know is when am I going? What's happening in my life? Let me talk about things that people don't talk enough about. Let me give you a scenario while people are listening and judging. What if one of my grandchildren is special needs? I don't think we do enough of this. Do you know, real talk, why I don't judge anyone? Actually, I just don't know what the fuck's going on in their life. I'm watching everybody walk around the internet and society just throwing nothing but judgment. I wish people are like, fuck this guy, he throws shade. Shade's easy, judgment's crazy. Telling people what they should be doing, you know nothing. You know nothing. You should post about this. Do you know that if a person posts about that, they have death threats? You should do this with your money. Okay, well, you should do this with it. I don't understand. So, I think for me, I don't feel, I have a will and it's split up at this point to kids and charity, but I may change it. And cause things will change and we'll see. But let me say one thing, charity. Most of my life, so I would say 97 cents on the dollar of everything I've done in my life has been incredibly private. Because I think that's how I was taught. It's funny, probably one of the reasons I don't flex a lot is the same reason I don't really make a lot of my charity work public. I think there's something in the way that my parents saw the world that became my framework, right? It's like, you keep quiet in some ways. I think, but I don't judge. Let me rephrase. I think there was a time a decade ago that I was a little cynical to people that were overly loud about donating. Yep. My Jersey Street bullshit radar would go off. But I've come to realize I don't want to be a judger either. And now, if you know, I'm okay, they're using that as a disguise for the bad shit. That happens. But there are just other people that get real pride in that, and more importantly, they're motivating others to do it. And so, yeah, I think
very public. I don't say amounts. I show them how they can do change.
Yeah, and honestly, even amounts, I think I've started to change my point of view on that. And this is what's fun about. Let me say something real quick to the kids, which by the way is everyone. If a 99-year-old grandma is watching, you're a kid. You get to change your mind, right? You like that one, right? Right, because you've changed your mind on shit. I've changed my, you get to change your mind, and so, I'm glad, I'm so happy kids have like, by the way, maybe if I was 14 and listening to this podcast, maybe I wouldn't have had that point of view as a 20 and 30-year-old about charity, right? And maybe I did leave an opportunity to bring awareness to Charity Water and Pencils of Promise and the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation and Reform. Maybe I've left too much attention on the table by maybe having too much pride in the humility in the class that comes along with not flexing it. You know, like, so I mean this to everybody, like, give yourself the grace to change your mind. For everyone who's listening, in 2017, I just kind of like had this moment where I was like, you know what? Like, I've talked all about like, oh, invest in the next Twitter, next Facebook. One thing I do well, and one thing I recommend everybody who's listening that does content, you need to read your DMs. That's where you get the insights. That's where you know where people's real feelings are. And I was getting a lot of like, and I was starting to get bigger at the time, and I was getting a lot of like, yo bro, I fuck with you, but like, fuck you. Like, who's got 25 bands to fucking put into a startup? I got $93 in my Wells Fargo. And I got enough of that I was like, okay, bet, like, I get it. I kind of like, you know, I was like, what did I do? You know, because my dad paid me $5 an hour and I wanted money. I was like, fuck, I was doing garage sales. So I just started talking about it. And then I did the 2017 Flip Challenge. You can go Google it right now, 2017 Flip Challenge, Garyvee, and you'll find the premise, which is if you have debt or if you have less than $10,000 in your bank account, which a lot of people do. I think people that are fortunate kind of lose touch. Then buying and selling stuff that you buy at flea markets, garage sales, thrift stores, storage lockers, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist is real money. Like, it's real. And what I like about it is a lot of people who don't know how to make money any other way really love it. Now that it's been out there for like 6 years, the amount of people who are like, yo, I've never known how to make money my whole life. I always worked at this or that. Like, everybody kind of knows something. So you go to a garage sale, like, I know what toys are worth and video games just because I've studied it for so long. But vintage clothes, like records, like, here's the reality. 90% of the stuff at a garage sale that is being sold for $1 or $2 is $10 on eBay. Sure. And then you get crazy hits. So, you know, I would go to Instagram right now or TikTok and put hashtag garage sale flip or yard sale flip. You'd be stunned. Get educated. We're not gonna get to it here. But on the make money side, especially for all the people listening who've got $87, that $87 can really be 10K. And the problem is, with the way the world, all the free information's good, but on the flip side, all the kids that are listening right now that have $87, they think they need to make $1 million. Right. And I'm like, listen, make 10,000 before you make $1 million. And when you get to 10,000, figure out how to get 100,000. And then you can get to $1 million, you know, and getting from 87 at you're 30 and you've never had any money to $1 million, it's not gonna happen. You're gonna chase fads, you're gonna chase bullshit, scams. And so, you know, I'm really about that flip. I mean, I did it the other day. Right. I literally, because I still film something called Trash Talk on, you know, I've done 10 or 11 episodes where I just go do it. And it's just there. It's there, and I'm really excited about it. I think most people should be able to make $500 in profit. Yep. And like, look, if you're listening right now, and here's the other thing, it's fun for certain people.
The game is fun.
Especially if you have a partner. Like, it's a great father-daughter, father-son. Me and AJ are real tight. We're 11 years apart. I think both of us would say, besides Jets football, that garage selling, and maybe even garage selling more, because during Jets football, we're just being maniacs and focusing. But when you wake up at 6:30 and you go to Burger King and get a coffee, and then you drive 25 minutes to the town-wide sale. By the way, if you want to really crush garage sales, Google town-wide garage sale, because you don't want to spend all morning going to 4. A lot of towns around the country will do a town-wide garage sale, and you can hit 100 in 4 hours. Wow. So that's a little hack. Anyway, you know, but you have to drive 40 minutes to get to the town that's doing it. So, you know, for me and AJ, when he was 13, 14, 15, 16, and I was 24, 25, 26, those were real moments when we were driving from 7 to 8 a.m. where he's talking about like liking girls and like school and like life, and like I'm talking about building dad's business, and like, it really bonded us. And so for a lot of people, I've gotten emails of like them and their best friend became closer because you're grinding. And what's funny is, for a lot of people that don't have money, you know this, they also are commonly, very cliche, the person that wakes up at 11 a.m. on a Saturday. Right. Now they're waking up at 6:30, They're getting that discipline. They're getting home by 11, 12. It's kind of the same. They realize they didn't even, you know, sometimes they're like, oh, I don't want to fuck up my bowling or my golf or hanging out with boys or the college football. I'm like, be home by it. And it gets them going and it changes it. And so yeah, I like Flip Life. I like it a lot because I also, once you get the first hook, one guy, because I'm so into it still, if someone's like, yo, Garyvee, you really put me on, like Flip Life, like changed my life. I'm always like, yo, what was your first big one? I'm like, what was your first big one? They're like, you'll never believe it. I bought fucking 40 bucks for 1,000 fucking CDs and sold them all for, some were rare and this Pink Floyd one was like 80 bucks and I was like, what the fuck? And I was hooked. And that's like, I'm still about that life. The two biggest mistakes people make is they think there's only one way to do content online when written word right now is the fastest emerging. What's going on LinkedIn, or back to the way I got to this point earlier, here's the hack on Instagram. You can literally take a picture of anything. It would be nice that it makes sense to what you're talking about. But if you then write 3 meaningful paragraphs with that photo, you would be stunned how much you can grow and win on Instagram. It is far less a visual only platform. And on the flip side, because there's some good looking fucking people in this room right now, so I'm making some assumption that you're hitting the gram pretty hard. The other mistake is the reverse. Too many people are just relying on the video and the photo and they're mailing in the copy, and the copy is an enormous variable of the success on Instagram. The two biggest mistakes that people make are they don't realize that any one of the 3 mediums that I made you raise your hands about are all viable. And 2, they don't focus on talking about shit they actually know. They posture and front to be an expert in something before they are, without realizing that if they were just authentic and said, this is my journey to becoming knowledgeable in real estate. This is my journey in becoming knowledgeable in DTC. This is my journey into being knowledgeable into fashion. Or even better, if you want to be foolproof, don't say you're an expert, say you're an enthusiast. People's insecurity of trying to position themselves as an expert when they know they're not fully there is hurting them tremendously with growth opportunity. So day trading attention is a very basic game of how do you not waste money, and how do you take any money you actually spend on building your business and extract the most value. Let me explain. How many people here have done influencer marketing? You've paid an influencer to do something for your business. Raise your hands high. I just want to get a sense. All right, enough for me to go with it. Let's talk about influencer marketing. Today, as we sit here today, October 2023, influencer marketing is one of the places where you most can get a remarkable deal for your $1,000 or $5,000 or $50,000, or could get completely ripped off for your $1,000, $5,000, $50,000. The swings of it working are extreme. It means you actually have to know the craft. It means you have to be not tricked by just following count. It means that you have to know what engagement really means. Is engagement, they're just gonna consume it? Or does engagement mean they're gonna convert? Most people are using influencer marketing the wrong way because they're only looking for it to sell the thing right away instead of building the brand. Most of us bought the clothes we're wearing right now, not because they cookied us and followed us around the internet and made us buy it, or they knocked on our door and sold it. It's because you wanted it, because it was built on brand. Everybody in this room, if you do, houseware, if you sell sneakers, if you're a lawyer, if you're a tax accountant, everybody here, the second they understand how serious I am about what I'm saying here, everyone here is a media company, what you do for a living. And that is a big change from the history of business. And so, what I'm concerned about is that there's a lot of people here who see or hear what I'm saying, but don't want to make video content. They're insecure how they look, they're not comfortable in it, and I want you to hear something from somebody who probably benefited from the growth of internet video as much as anyone has over the last 15 years. It is not a requirement to be a media company. Let me explain. Let me give you a very detailed insight that nobody's taking advantage of, just if someone's in the mood to go test for the next 30 days. Instagram, super visual. If you are a remarkable writer here, actually, you know what? Let me do this real quick before I even say this. I'm gonna ask all of you the gift of talking, the ability to do video, and the ability to write. I'm gonna ask all of you to think right now, if I asked you what you're best at, talking, so you can do audio, like a podcast, video, which obviously has a component of talking, but also is a video, and it's a different dynamic, or writing. Out of those three, to communicate, to make the thing that you want to happen in your world, I'm gonna ask everybody right now to raise their hand for what they do best. If you are best at writing of those three, please raise your hands high. Raise them high. Thank you. Audio. No video involved, but just talking. Raise them high. I see some bullshit hands. Sir in the back there, that's a little low. A little higher. There you go, my man. Big number. Video. Perfect. If you looked, little less unwritten, right? And the other two, audio and video, kind of a 50-50, must have been 60-40. I need everybody to hear this. The only thing I've done well in my professional career is I had self-awareness and I executed against my self-awareness. The only thing I was good at always was not trying to be anybody that I wasn't. Not trying to appease anyone. It showed up bad early on because I was such a bad student and I got D's and F's, and it seemingly looked like a weakness. But even at 10, 11, 12 years old, I had such conviction of who I was gonna be that I genuinely understood that that framework of learning wasn't working for me and I needed to do it a different way. So I need everybody to hear this. There is a direct correlation of how much you're gonna grow if you're in the interest of growing. And I'm gonna assume if you're here on a Friday afternoon, like there's nobody who should be here if they're not interested in growing. So I'm just gonna make a blank assumption that everyone here is looking to do something with themselves. There's a direct correlation on how successful you will be based on how good you are at making content for the internet, period. And by the way, I want everyone to hear this. Millions of people will build successful businesses without producing content for the internet. You can build a great reputation behind the scenes, you could do it. But there's a direct correlation of how big your upside can be based on how good you are at producing content for the internet. The thing that no one's telling you is, it doesn't have to be video. It doesn't have to be video. You don't have to be over the top and ridiculous. Like I'm so sad that I'm so high energy. I wish a lot of times that I wasn't, because it still would have happened for me. I didn't get here because I'm a hyper Jersey boy. I got here because I understood distribution and I only talk about shit I know. The reason I started a wine show first when I saw this was because it was the thing I most knew. I almost did a New York Jets show too, but like that was the other thing that I debated besides the wine show. If the people in this room can understand that the people that win on the internet making content do not have to be experts. Think about all of you in your business and your craft right now, where you know people are growing online, but don't actually have as much depth of knowledge in the craft that you have. You don't have to position yourself as an expert. It's the biggest mistake that people make. The two biggest mistakes that people make is, one, they think it's only video without realizing that the people that raise their hand for written word or audio can win just as much. Malcolm Gladwell does not have a daily TikTok. He wins because he writes. There's plenty of podcasters, less now because everybody's filming themselves do the podcast, they figured it out. But there's plenty of podcasters who still don't crush a daily Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube Shorts framework. I'm writing a new book. I'm about to finish it. It's a thank you. It's a follow-up from a book that I wrote 10 years ago that is outside of Crush It, my first book, the book that I most get emails and DMs about saying thank you or this impacted me, and that was a book called Jab, 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 Right Hook. And that book mattered for a lot of people because I wrote it at a time when people weren't realizing that content in social media, more so than anything else, was about to become the battleground. The battleground of growth, popularity, opportunity. And that book was really fun to write at the time. And I think we're in that same moment again now. So originally I was gonna call it Jab, 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 Left Hook. But I've decided to call it day trading attention. And I really want to talk about day trading attention. I'm thrilled to get into a lot of things that run through my mind, both culturally and content-wise here with all of you today. I started my career of making content. First it was wine, And then it was very tactical internet marketing and like what was going on. And as some of you may know, it's really evolved now to a much higher plane of perspective, because I went 4 or 5 years telling people exactly what to do on Twitter or Facebook or Tumblr at the time or YouTube. And I just would watch event like this consistently. All the content I was putting out, I would just see so many people not do it. And that's what got me to the next plane of what I think about and spend time on now, which is why are people not doing that? And it got me into the concepts of insecurity and confidence and patience and all the stuff that I really am quite passionate about. How do you balance, here's a big one for this crew, probably across the board. How do you balance hunger and tenacity and ambition with patience? How many people here consume some of my content, have a sense of me? Just raise your hands. Thank you. The thing that the reason I wanted to see that was to go where I'm about to go. As a lot of you know, I push patience heavy. And most people struggle with it because they hear, I say patience and y'all hear complacency. Ambition and patience balanced perfectly is sustainable happiness and success. Ambition grounded in the need to happen quickly because you're insecure and you want to show everybody you made it is a fucking death trap.